Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Divine Design Podcast. I'm so excited today because I'm sitting here with Tim Pogue with Recovery Road, who has a fascinating story, and not to mention, he's my boyfriend. So, hey, Tim, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Hi, sweetie, I love you.
Hi, baby. Hi. All right, so this was very interesting going into this episode because I really wanted to share a lot about your story in Recovery Road and how you've walked through almost 18 years of being clean and 22 years of your past and what that means and how many people you've helped. But what was laid on my heart this morning was to go in a different direction. So what we're going to do is we are going to talk about Recovery Road and how many people you've helped and your story, but we're going to talk about a couple other things as well. And what we're going to do is start a little bit of how I met you, how our journey has gone by being a couple, and how I believe, and I know you believe, that this relationship is truly God ordained.
Definitely.
And we have to walk through this relationship to see whatever's going to happen, whether it's for a season or a future. I believe that. Like, we have to bring this relationship to fruition. And I think God is going to completely bless us in the end. And I'm so excited to see what he does with us. But that was truly what was laid on my heart this morning. And the reason being is because, I got up, I prayed, I've been talking to God all morning long. And when I started getting dressed, I put on my boombox and I listened to Pandora and I put on my favorite God station. So I have a bunch of little channels on there. Every single song that played was where I was when I first met you. And I thought, God, and literally I told Caleb when he walked in, I was like, I've been crying this morning. I don't want to be crying. I don't want to be puffy-eyed. I don't want to be anything this morning. My baby's coming over. We're getting ready to do this. And I just didn't want to be in that emotional, state. But after hearing all these songs, I just was like, all right, God, what are you trying to tell me? And I felt like what he was telling me is, child, you're going to talk about y'all's relationship. And Tim, if I have to have you on another time and we go full force on Recovery Road, because Recovery Road is an amazing place. I know it. You know it.
And anybody who's been there knows it.
And anybody,
including you. We can't really have a podcast about our relationship without Recovery Road being in it.
And that's absolutely
how we met.
Yes.
And for me, this is one of the things that I don't like to say. Nobody likes to say these things. But I made a terrible mistake with you in the beginning. Going through your grief, I don't want to say I took advantage of it, but I was extremely drawn to you in a spiritual sense, because now that you know me, you know that I'm a spiritual guy.
Yes.
You're beautiful too, but which in a worldly sense is also important. If you're not attracted to somebody, it doesn't really matter. I had a tendency to walk out of line of what I know I'm not supposed to do. And you and I both know God kind of punished us for that, right? If you believe it's spiritual, all of it, then we were kind of punished. But it was just so God could put Tim in check. And you're right, I've been clean 18 years. But I'm still a broken human being who makes terrible mistakes. And so we went through a rocky time, which got us to where we are now. And there you go with that emotional.
I never expected you to say that.
Well, it's because I have to. I just told you I'm going to go spend some time with me. And when you told me that you had a new direction that you were going to go, I had a direction I thought it was going to go. So that's what I prayed about and meditated on. And so just now I went and prayed and meditated on something else and said whatever she's got. Because when you told me this is what I'm going to think and we're going to do, and I said, I don't want to know.
Right.
because I'm led by my spirit now. And my spirit makes me tell on myself.
Yes.
It's what keeps me healthy.
Right.
And so our journey has been a journey that has been sometimes Tim led, but now God led. And it's because he showed Tim that Tim don't get to lead that either. Tim runs his mouth, God runs the show, and if I start running my mouth too loud, I won't hear God. And so, yeah, so since we're going to talk about that, that just kind of has to come out. I mean, that has to be the truth, because I hate people to think, I don't want to be one of those people who, when I leave this earth, go to a funeral and people tell people lies about me. He lit up a room and he did that. I don't want to hear all that. That's not who I am. I'm a broken individual who is on a journey to be a better person. And recovery has given me that. And it gave me that where religion couldn't. It gave me that where men couldn't. I got that through a personal relationship with God. And I've come to this realization that sometimes God wants your story. You can go on a podcast, and I don't know how many people will see this in the future. But once it's out there, it's out there.
Right.
And so people need to first understand that Tim sits here 18 years clean. Very proud of who I am today.
I'm proud of you.
Right out of the gate, Tim helps nobody. God helps everybody.
Right.
I just get to be sometimes the vessel that he does that to. And it's real simple what I do. I counsel people in recovery. I help them get into rehabs when they have no money or insurance. I help people kind of try to find their way. Because, being a recovering addict is not just about quitting drugs. Because then, even though I was raised in a very well-to-do home, I never worried about anything. I never did without. I was a spoiled child. And when I lived on the streets, I saw a whole different side of life. And so that's what made me who I am today. And so I have to mention the bad with Tim along with the good, because it is a constant journey. And, my post last week about Recovery Road was that the road to recovery is always under construction. But that's not just the road to recovery. That's just the journey.
Right.
Your road should always be under construction.
That's right.
And so I've learned not to settle with where I am, but I have learned to say where I am. And I can't really help anyone. I can't allow God to use me if I don't check me first.
Right.
And so I had to tell that about us because that was some bad choices on my part. And that's all on me. But where we are today is all on God.
That's right.
I chose to listen. I chose to obey instead of doing what I wanted to. I mean, look at you.
Oh.
So my human stepped in,
Sweet.
and then my soul was not comfortable with that. But so I do have to tell that part because I don't want people to think, oh, he thinks he's something that he's not, because I'm not. I'm a broken man who helps broken people. It's that simple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then let me...
Now I'm emotional.
Okay. Oh, baby, I love you. I love you. All right. So thank you for that. I didn't know how, this would go. But let's go back, because something that you said, and this is what I've learned, and I talked to Caleb about it, I talked to many of people about it. I mean, to the point where Caleb's, to the point where he's like, Mom, this is all you say. This is all you say. And I'm like, this is my belief. This is ingrained in me. This is so powerful that I want you to know, Caleb. I want you to live a life like this if you choose. It is your will. It is your will to choose. And I want you to be checking things. I want you to be checking God. And he's going to church, and I love that he's going to church. But I'm like, you know what? Make sure that you're asking the right questions, and that you're having that personal relationship with God to make sure that you know the truth, because that's what I'm asking God right now is, God, it's you and me, and I need to know the truth about, what's right or wrong, and what your word is. And, for thousands of years, they say this is the divine word, and that men has taken books in and out and in and out. And as we've talked about a million times, man will pervert his word. And so I am looking for the truth, but I want to thank you, and I want to thank Recovery Road for allowing me. I was walking with Jesus, but not how I walk with God today. Call it your higher power, whatever your belief is. And that is through Recovery Road. So I want to talk a little bit about this, that why this relationship is God ordained, why we have to see this through, is because there are so many signs that I received, that I knew that God, and now looking back almost 2 years, now I realize that God sent me there. God
Absolutely.
sent me there.
Absolutely.
And I know this now because of everything that has transpired. But I want to talk about our numbers. I think it's important because I believe that, he's giving the signs there for me to at least recognize, to go, okay, this is something that I need to pay attention to. Whoa, this may be somewhere I need to be, where I could have gone to another grief group or whatever that may be. But so, first of all, Recovery Road is located at 410 South I-35 in Red Oak. My birthday is 410. So I'm like, okay, not a big deal. 410 number, all right. Tim's birthday is January 31st. Steve died on January 31st. Okay. Lori Ann, his sister, her husband's name was Steve, who died a month before my Steve. Now, I profoundly could not reach out to your sister. Saw it posted on Facebook. Think I even had a conversation with Steve about it, but I was like, look, I can't even reach out to her. I can't text her. I can't Facebook message her. I couldn't anything, and I didn't understand what that was about. But
Later.
Now I'm learning God was preparing me.
Absolutely.
For all of this. And he was having me take notice by the profoundness of me not being able to reach out to her. So that happens. Lo and behold, thank God, little Lori Ann Pogue comes to Steve's funeral. This is the first time that I get to interact with her throughout this whole process with our Steves. So I'm hugging her neck and I'm like, Lori Ann, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so sorry I've not reached out to you. When this is over, please, I'm going to reach out to you maybe in about 2 weeks. Let's go to dinner. She said, yes, let's go to dinner. So we did that. I go out to dinner with Lori Ann on a Thursday night. I had heard about a grief group. And so I'm with Lori Ann and I'm like, Lori Ann, have you ever heard of a grief group? And she's like, yeah, my brother runs one. And I'm like, what? Girl, what are you saying right now? Your brother runs a grief group? She goes, yeah, at Recovery Road. And I'm like, where is this? Red Oak. Okay, well, when is it? She goes, oh, it's tonight. And I said, or can we make it? And she goes, no, we missed it. And I said, Lori Ann, will you go with me next week, please? And she goes, yeah, I'll go with you. And so this is our interaction. I'll get back to the numbers story because I got to tell one more story about when I walk into Recovery Road and I meet you. So there are a bunch of people at Recovery Road, and so I'm getting introduced. And I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger anyways. The Recovery Road people are huggers. Thank God. So I'm hugging everybody. I get to this man. We hug each other, but there's something, when we kind of hit kind of a chest, we bounced back. We really did.
Yeah. It was strange.
It was very, very strange. We kind of look at each other. I'm kind of like, what was that? I don't know if it was felt like like static electricity you hit and you're like, pow, okay. If it was kind of like that. So I think I was like, okay, whatever. I go in for the hug anyway. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Tim is walking down the hall and makes a comment out loud and says, what did you say? Did you say F in there?
Yeah.
He said,
said,
but that's okay. Hey, we're real.
Yeah, that's right. I said,
and, but he goes, what the fuck was that? And I heard it, and I literally wanted to say, what the fuck was that? But there were so many people in that room, and this is the first time for me to ever walk into that room that I thought, I don't think I should say that because I think the people may wonder what just happened, and then we would have to explain possibly if anybody asked.
That's what I was wondering.
So, well, I definitely, but what I yelled back to him was, I heard that.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to know I heard that and I experienced that too. And I'm not sure what the heck that was. So I just think some interactions happened that definitely were not normal.
Well, they wasn't of this world. And that's the deal about, this is where I think people get twisted. And, I hate to, I don't want to beat up on religion, but if you read the Bible and just the red letters, it was all designed to be spiritual. But the world overtook us with all the new technology and all the new things and stuff. There's no new sins under the sun. There's just new vehicles to get there, lots of them. But this world is spiritual, all of it.
Yes.
And whatever we think's going on here is not really what it's about.
Right.
And we've lost that in society today. And I'm going to just bring this up real quick because I think this is important of how I see, as a spiritual person who walks spiritually, how God works. So from 2020, with all the stuff going on, and even before that, really it started before the pandemic, which to me, I think this is my personal belief, is that I believe God's in control and nothing happens without his permission or he does it himself. He either allows it or makes it happen. And so what we went through around, I'd say 2018 up to the pandemic, was all of our professional athletes and actors and all these people started denouncing God in a way.
You're right.
Like, we don't want prayer. We don't want to, things that have God in it, the national anthem. We don't want to do that anymore, and we shouldn't have to. And so it became this whole thing, the NBA did it, the NFL did it, baseball, which I thought was stupid. They tried to clean it up with putting a rope on the, everybody holding a rope of unity and all this stuff. But the truth is, unity is with God. This is God's world. And so we had an incident in the NFL Monday night where a guy suffered instant death syndrome.
Right.
And just like that, the NFL was okay with people praying on the field.
What's his name? DeMar?
DeMar. I can't remember his last name.
Hamlin.
And so all of a sudden, just like that, when a tragedy struck, it was okay for people to pray. Here's what you got to watch and not miss. He woke up because they cried out to God. And that's what he tells us. You cry out to me, I hear your cries. And I'll heal your land. And so he'll take a tragedy and allow that to happen in order to restore his power over this world.
I love it.
And so we can't miss that.
Yes. You made a comment about that the other night.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
we all want to talk
road.
about the incident and how blessed it was. But if you watch football, and I love football, and if you watch last night, there's people wearing the DeMar jerseys and there was people wearing crosses on their shirts and
Praise God.
Thank God. Thank God for the prayers. And they showed posters, continued prayers for the Hamlin family.
Nice.
And so God takes tragedy to shake us up and wake us up. True in your case, true in life. It's just the truth in life. And so I just felt the need to say that. And it's why I walk the way I walk today, is because it is spiritual, all of it. And as above, so below. And so God is still in control and on the throne and running the show. Now, I am not a holy roller dude. I'm just not going to be one of those. I'm just not one of those religious fanatics. I got a foul mouth, smart mouth. I say things I shouldn't say.
That's why we get along very well.
I do things I shouldn't do. I have thoughts I shouldn't have. I'm no different than any other human being.
Right.
But what I know today from my journey through the 12 steps is that you were talking about the Bible and it being perverted and stuff. It's a great direction. But if you read it with an open mind, you'll find one thing. Seek me, you'll find me. Knock, and I'll open the door. And so he answers your questions, he answers your prayers, and he hears you. Until we're willing to realize that Tim, God, and the devil all sound the same, and that I have the desire to do what's right, but I can't do it because I'm human. And until we figure that out and we start listening and paying attention to God, we miss things like the DeMar Hamlin story.
Right.
We miss those things as being a tragedy and, oh, thank God, but people will say those things. Thank God. Thank God he's okay. Thank God. You better thank God because he's the reason he's okay. And he's the reason it also happened.
Right.
And so now you've got people saying, thank God on national television, where 3 years ago it was pretty much banned. And it's not the only thing. The little girl who was in Russia for something as small as marijuana cartridges,
that's right,
going to get a 10-year sentence. She was denouncing the United States, which in my opinion, you're denouncing God because this country was founded on godly principles. When she got in trouble, she cried out to the United States, the same people she was saying were not good. And so God intervened. And if we're not paying attention, we'll miss these things, that it is spiritual, all of it. Nobody makes a decision without it being laid on them in some way, shape, or form. And so God is influential. They talk about influencers and stuff like that. God's the influencer.
He is the
and my belief or disbelief in that's irrelevant. He is the influencer. He influences the influencers.
Absolutely.
So it all goes back to God.
To actually experience this, it's the spiritual awakening.
Yes.
It changes you, everything about you. I don't ask myself the question anymore, what do I need to do about this or that or that? It could be stupid, dumb shit, Tim, but I go to him.
Yeah, and it's not stupid or dumb to him.
And so, I have to wait and listen and be silent. And I might not get those answers immediately, but I may get an answer from somebody I come into contact with and they say something and I'm like, oof, that confirms, what I need to do in regards to this. But this is a different way of living for me. Like I said, I've always had God. I know that I've had supernatural experiences. My mother at 21 gave me a supernatural hug. And I know 2 weeks before she died, and I know that was God. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. I didn't even want to tell people about it because I thought that they would think that I was crazy. But things have happened throughout my life, things that I see, different things as a child that I've experienced that now we're going to see. I may start telling these stories about truly what I've experienced in my life and how it's changing and how God needs to help me to understand and discern really, truly what's going on and what's going on here and how that we're supposed to truly get these messages out. I'm going to bring this back because we're going back to the numbers. So I'm going to bring this back right now. All right, so we're talking about Lorianne. We go to grief group. We have the hug. We experience that. We have 410. We have 131 date. Okay, then Lorianne and I are going to dinner one night. It's June, and I said, Lori, we're in the truck, and I'm like, Lorianne, how are you doing? She goes, I'm not doing well. And I said, what's up? And she said, Steve's birthday's coming around. And I'm like, okay, my Steve's birthday's coming around. When's his birthday? And she says, July 2nd. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I was like, what the fuck? Lorianne, what the fuck? Blah, blah, blah. What do you mean? What's going on here? And even she's kind of like, blown away. Now, please forgive me if I get this date wrong, but my mom's been, she's rested in peace for, since 1995. But so the next thing is that their mom has a birthday. Timmy asked me, hey, do you want to go to my mom's birthday party? And I'm like, sure, it's the beginning of August. And I'm like, oh my God, when's your mom's birthday? It's the 5th, August 5th. And I just am like, what is going on right now? So
why is that? Tell them why that's important. Because whose birthday else is that?
Oh, it's my mom's birthday. Yeah. So, okay, I didn't say that. Okay, it's my mom's birthday, but God, and here's how God has to talk to me honestly at the beginning, okay? Not so much anymore. But at the beginning, I would tell him, God, I'm a moron. I need you to actually tell me, and you need to tell me in neon signs, flash it up there so that I know for sure. But this is what he was doing. He was lining up all these numbers for me so that at least I would take notice at that point in time, because I probably wouldn't have taken notice of any of this. So that he was like, newsflash, hey, pay attention, look at what's going on here. And so at least that's the beginning of our journey is the numbers and whatnot. And of course, yeah, you busted out right at the beginning, kind of like, hey, here's this. I didn't know if we'd actually go into that, but this has been the most interesting relationship, odd, not normal relationship I've ever been in. And because it's gone like this, I know that it's God now. I know this for a fact. And I can't imagine, honestly, baby, walking through. Like, this has just been so amazing, even though I don't understand it. There's some times where I'm just like, God, I can't do this anymore. Seriously, like, God, I can't do this anymore. I need him to talk to me. I need him to whatever. But let me tell you, like, I'll share this and I surrender it and go, God, I surrender all of this relationship, everything. Like, I just surrender it. Like, I'm done. But you know what he'll do? This is how he works. But listen, this is me being broken down to my knees to go, I give it to you. I basically am giving it all to you and go, okay. He'll have him call me that night or come to me next day and start talking and go, I don't know why I'm saying all this, blah, 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 blah. And it's exactly what I cried out to God about. And I'm like, oh, I know why you're saying it. And I might not even disclose to him, but I'm like, God's having you say this to me. And I may not even tell you.
And I don't need to know.
And you don't need to know because this is my walk with him. And
when he puts it on me, I do it because I also know that he's talking to you. And that's the way it works. And, our relationship has been odd. But from a worldly view, which is where your view comes from.
Right.
And so dealing with someone like me who no longer orders his own steps in this world, who does his best to really try to pay attention and listen to the spiritual side of my nature. Which, by the way, the analogy in recovery is that there's three of us. And just Father, Son, Holy Spirit, there's also three of me, but they're not all divine. There's Tim, the guy that God created wonderfully in my mother's womb. And that I inserted my free will and made all the right choices, I would be that guy. Then there's Tim that the world turned me into with my conditioned beliefs, with all the things that went on, the way the world yells at you. I wound up in the streets doing drugs, started out having fun, doing cocaine, then I became a full-blown crackhead. I've had 7 back surgeries, started at 19, started down the pain pill deal, and then, those dried up, you wind up on the street. It's just a terrible thing. So that's the Tim I wound up being for 22 years. And then I became this Tim in recovery now. And that Tim that was in the street and the Tim now in recovery, they're the same Tim. But then there's that third guy. And that's the guy I think I am. And none of those 3 guys look alike. And so we think we're something we're not in a lot of areas of our life. And then in other areas of our life, we think we're not, and we are. And so what a spiritual journey actually does is shows you the difference in those 3, because the voice sounds the same. The ideas my idiots have great ideas, and so I have to take time to sort them out because they're worldly idiots.
Right.
And they're the conditioned idiot. And then there's that God idiot. And I have to tell this about my story because to me it's also one of those things that I didn't really think about till later on in my recovery. But my dad told me a long, long time ago, and we laugh about it now, that when I was born, he prayed over me. And he asked God to make me a minister. That's what he asked God to do. And he'll tell you now that had he known what that was going to look like, he would have been a whole lot more specific, like seminary, pulpit minister, or, whatever. But
don't teach him in the streets, Lord.
Exactly. He was thinking, go to college 4 years or get his, go to seminary, whatever. But that wasn't, and that's God funny. Answered his prayer.
Okay. Yes.
And I had to go to school for 22 years of living in the streets. I had to go to prison twice. I had to go to rehab 9 times. And so I have a pretty good education. And that wasn't what my parents wanted, but that's exactly what God did. And so there is, for me, proof of what the Word says, that we serve a God whose ways are not ours, whose thoughts are not ours, and he's not restricted by time like we are.
Right.
And so when I tell my dad, I said, when you get to heaven, you're going to go, dude, I was wanting my son, like I didn't really want to have to go make bond and go and put commissary money on it. That's not exactly what I had in mind. And, I wanted my son to like become a minister, and I wanted it to happen, by the time he was 20. And God was, he'll look at my dad and go, well, dude, that was only like 15 minutes ago.
Exactly.
Because time is not the same to God as it is to us.
Right.
But what he did do was he answered my dad's prayer. And so if you're not paying attention, if you're not spiritually awakened, you miss these little things that look like, actually, if I wasn't in a spiritual journey, that probably never would have come back up.
I think you're right about that.
And so God shows us what he's doing later. And that's the part that's hard to deal with in a spiritual journey, is that everything he puts us through is about later.
Right.
That includes us.
Yes.
And that includes the walk we've been on.
Right.
And I have been in that place with you where it's like, I can't do this. But I also know this chick is nuts, man. But there's also that part of me that felt that. And I'm going to go back to that for a second. When I felt that with you, this is something, I don't really share this with a lot. All my tribe knows this, and they know this about you. I asked God to send me somebody who would get me, because I know I'm weird. When you walk in a spiritual way and the world doesn't deal, I don't deal with the world.
Right.
Like the world deals with people, and that's not me. I deal with the world. The world no longer dictates my life.
I know this.
I dictate my life through God.
Right.
Prayer, meditation, and journaling. And you, since we've met, have started doing that, and
Yes.
you see the power in that.
Yes.
And that's the part I think we really miss, is that God gives us the power to do things that we can't even imagine.
Absolutely.
And the world stifles it. And, of course, if you believe in God, you got to believe in the devil. And the devil runs the world. It's his world. God runs the show. But in the show, there's many facets.
Right.
And so the devil is in this world to pull us from God.
Right.
We're not even aware of that anymore. We don't even talk about demons and stuff like that anymore, which that's a whole nother podcast.
It is a whole other podcast. We will get there, guys.
But the truth is, if you believe that Jesus walked in this earth and you believe what he did, then you got to know he didn't do much except teach, cast out demons, and heal the sick. And some of the sick were sick because of demons.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, Jesus died on the cross and was risen on the third day, and we forgot about all that.
Right.
And that's really, they didn't go anywhere.
Right. This world is no different.
No different. They're still roaming this earth, and they're still influencing our decisions. And they do it by the rat race, as we call it. You know this, but I'm now daddy rat. I run my own race, and I run it with God, and the world doesn't get to affect it. I have to deal with the world, but I'm not part of the world today. I have excluded myself from that part.
And this is when I talk about us being abnormal, or him and this being an interesting relationship. This is what I'm talking about, because, I still have one foot in the world. I'm young. I'm super young. I got God, but I've been doing this for 2 years. I journal, pray, and meditate. And it's amazing what God tells you and reveals to you. But I still feel like I've got one foot in, and I'm not where he is. I mean, this is 18 years of you doing this. And so, you might have asked God for can I have somebody who's spiritually awakened by at least, 10 years? No, he gave you an infant.
Yeah, but what he gave me was what was good for me. And that was where I was going with that. So when I got in recovery, first I want to hit step 12 real quick.
Okay.
Step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening, as a result of these steps. We continue to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And then I always say, here, here. And the reason I say that is because most people don't understand what they just said until you walk through it. What principles did I learn through those steps? Work them and find out.
Exactly.
Because here's what it is. I now live by a set of principles that are mine and God's. They're not ordained. They're not influenced. They're not conditioned. They're straight up from me and God. And your opinion of them, you
Doesn't
know this,
matter.
it's irrelevant to me.
That's right.
I don't care what people think of how I deliver the message. I really, really don't. I ain't for everybody, but I'm not supposed to be, and I ain't trying to be, and I don't want to be. But I've learned to pay attention when I am for somebody. And that hug that we had on the first meeting was for me an answered prayer that was 18 years in the making. 16 now. We've been together too. 16 years in the making. If that doesn't tell you how slow I am, I had to wait a long time for you. And God did a lot of things to bring you to me. I truly believe that. And they look like tragedies. And some of them are. But the truth is, and you know this from your own prayer, meditating, and journaling, it was God combining our prayers.
Oh my God.
And so you were praying about things a year before you lost Steve.
And I know, because I look back and reflect, and I'm like, okay, I thought about this morning. I was praying for these things.
And you remember when we first started dating for months, I'd tell you, go back and think about, meditate on what you were praying about before, because your answers are now. Because that we think it goes back to God's timing. God don't keep time like me. My dad wanted a minister at 25. He got one at 40.
Right.
5. I was in recovery 5 years before I actually became a recovery minister or a recovery coach, counselor, whatever. And I don't get paid for this. I spend money to do this. If I'm going to serve God, it's got to hurt a little. It's got to cost a little. And it used to kind of sting. But it doesn't anymore, because now I've grown to a place where I know that if somebody needs their rent paid and we pay it, he replaces it.
Right.
It's his money, not my money.
Right, right.
Because if it's my money, that means I'm back into being part of the world.
Right.
So the principles we learn through step 12 become ours and ours alone, and they help us to separate from living in the rat race of the world and letting the world dictate what we're doing. Because what I do looks weird to people.
Right.
The grown-ass man journals, and, and I think of my daughter, my sister with kids had a diary, and I'd read it to my friends, and, I'd get in trouble, get grounded, and whooping and all that. And I was never going to journal. I was like, that is for girls, man. And my sponsor said, well, you probably need to find another sponsor if you're not willing to journal, because it's written so many times in our literature that we put pen to paper. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I went and bought a pink spiral. I thought it was going to be a girl thing. And, so for my first few months, I had nothing but paragraphs of cussing because I didn't know what to say.
Okay.
And one day, but I did what I was told.
Okay.
And, of course, I got to tell this, too. I told God, I don't know if you're real. I don't know if this crap's real you got me in. But I do know that what I've done so far is just pissed off a whole life. And so I'm going to do what these people tell me for 6 months, and if shit don't change, I'm going back to crack.
Okay.
And that was almost 18 years ago, because it did change. And he just, I can just see his supernatural hand patting me on the head, rolling his eyes, going, you freaking,
all right,
you're
child,
an idiot,
let's see.
just shut up. And so he introduced me to a man
Get to run.
who changed my life. He worked through him. And
That's
it was
awesome.
so profound that it made me do it too. I wanted to have that effect on other people. That was what I wanted.
And you do. You see a light. I think people who are walking Christ-like, we're not saying you're perfect. by any means.
No.
Anybody that's walking Christ-like, it's your heart's in the right place. You do want to do the right thing. You're not, trying to be sinful, but we're human.
Absolutely.
So I forgot what I was saying. Anyways, but I was saying, what were you saying, baby?
Well, I was talking about the power of the 12 steps and how your outlook on life changes and your principles that you get are yours. And so you see God different. You see the world different. You see people different. You see situations and things that happen completely different. Just like, I promise you, there's people who are going to see this and they have not stopped to think of the Damar Hamlin thing.
You're right.
But that's a profound thing that God did on national television. And it wasn't anything small. It was something huge. I mean, instant death syndrome is huge. The boy died immediately, right then, right there. And then you saw a bunch of people taking knees and praying.
Right.
And
His whole team.
The whole team, the other team, the coach, everybody. People in the stands, everybody. And so
I didn't watch the games.
You can't miss what God that did there.
Right.
But without those principles that I learned,
you wouldn't have seen it.
I would not have connected those two.
Right.
But because my soul was so upset and has been for several years that we're taking God out of everything.
Right.
And that we don't believe. And for me, this is a deal. I don't really care how you see God, because he don't think like you and his ways are not your ways, and your conditioning decides how you see God. And he says, lean not to your own understanding, but acknowledge me. I tell this all the time. I love Leonard Skinner, and I love the song Simple Man.
Right.
And if that's how we would have raised our kids, things would be a lot different. And tell them to be someone you love, someone you understand. And that's what the 12 steps of recovery do. And that's what a spiritual walk with God does, is that it gives you, you can love you and you can love God. Without those two things, it's not possible to actually love other people.
That's true. That's true.
It's possible to manipulate and look like you love them and all that stuff, but it's not really love.
And I'm going to tell you, by me actually, working the 12 steps and continuing to do this and reflect at night on, hurts, hangups, and habits, really, that it has changed my life. And so what I was praying for, and then what happened, the tragedy in my life, then brings me to you. I think definitely to learn the 12 steps, to have a closer relationship with him. I can't imagine, honestly, now living any other way.
There ain't no other way to live, in my opinion. And the reason there's no other way to live is it's not about now. It's always about later.
It's about later, and it's freeing.
It is freeing.
To know that, honestly, and I have these little bits and pieces that have revelations, but to know honestly that I'm going to say it, because look, I'm a stinking Lone Ranger. I rebel. I'm stubborn.
No, really?
It's like my way or the highway. Sometimes not with him all the time, but I've manifested a lot of my life. I've become a successful business owner by manifesting. I'm good at writing shit down. Okay, I've been really good at that. Did my brother read my diary? Yes. Did I get in trouble? Everything that you said, yes. And I got grounded for the words that I put in my diary and everything. And it was so embarrassing. But all of this it's changed my life.
It does change your life.
It's completely changed my life.
And it seems crazy, don't it? That you can just pick up a pen and put some thoughts on paper, and it changes your life. It's crazy how that works.
Well, but the difference for me is I can put it on there and manifest my own destiny.
And we all can. If we do that, we all can. And I was just you just looked up there, and I was going to say, I love the name of this divine design, because whether we believe this or not, I say this a lot, it's irrelevant. God's in control, and everything is by divine design. Your belief or disbelief in that is really irrelevant. He's still divinely designing this entire walk for everyone. Here's the deal. You can go, this is what my sponsor told me, and I believe this absolutely to be true. You have free will.
Yes.
You can go smoke crack, lie, steal people's shit, go to prison, go in and out of rehabs. God's going to use that. Or you can get clean and go deliver the message that it's possible for other people. You can recover out loud and be honest about who you used to be, and that because of God, you're not that person anymore, which should give hope to other people, and God's going to get his way. So it doesn't really matter what I do. If God's in control, he's going to get his way, right? So what changes? How I feel about me.
Well, I was going to say
Exactly.
my free will.
Yeah, my free will today is to work for God, but it's still my will.
Right.
And now he lines his will up. I line my will up with his, even though it looks like he lines his up with me.
Right. Right.
And that's the grace of God. And he does that to use me the best way he can use me. And
that's what I'm talking about now is, I've writing vision boards, business plans, keeping a board with, my goals and whatnot. But this was created through my journal I want my life divinely designed now. But what I find is the closer that I get with him, and I'm not talking about, guys, I don't go to church. Do I like to go to church? Yes. If I'm going to go to the Oaks, I just like it there. I like the way it feels. I feel God there. But I'm not talking about organized religion here. I'm talking about this is something that I may do every other day or daily to get in relationship or connection with him. And I think this is the integral part. This is the difference. And so if everybody would do this, they would know him. And I'm not talking about you go to church and you just sit there and you get a message and go home and go, okay, that was a great message. All right, I'll try to live my life that way. That's all you think about, and that's it. This is actually speaking with him and hearing him and him guiding you, daily to whatever his will is for my life, because that's what I'm asking for. I just want your will now, God, because look, I can manifest some shit. I could definitely do that. But I know if it's divinely designed and I let you take over, that you will give me everything that I've ever wanted. And it'll be way better than I ever anticipated because I'm not fucking it up. Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And the power in writing, we find in recovery, is what we were talking about earlier, and that's those 3 people that live in us.
Right.
I used to ask my sponsor, and earlier I was like, dude, why? Because he didn't like that I didn't want a journal, so he made me bring my journal every week and read some stuff. So I got to read a lot of cussing in the early, and he'd go, that's good. And I was like, that's good? He goes, yeah, you wrote,
That's something.
You wrote something down. But what journaling actually does for the human is nothing. It's what it does for the soul.
Spiritually.
And those words come out, and they call it using your senses. You have to touch a pen. You have to acknowledge and touch it to the paper. Your eyes see it. Then when you get through, you read it. Your ears hear it. And this is you communing with you, which is you communing with the peace of God he gave you, that you can't do in a loud world.
Right.
You can't.
You can't.
And if you start journaling, you'll write all kinds of crazy crap. And then you'll get to something deeper.
Right.
And it's kind of strange how it works.
It is.
But it's really a form of release from all the thoughts that roll around in our heads. We can never get anywhere if we don't get them out. And so, and I can talk about them, but they're still rolling around. I don't know how to describe. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know
and
exactly.
And then what happens, you wake up the next day and you get new ones. And then you get new ones. And it's like that. Those people on a motorcycle that do like this, only you got 500 motorcycles in there, and eventually somebody's going to crash. Chaos in my mind.
Yes.
Peace can't live with chaos.
That's right.
And so journaling creates a peaceful space in your head.
It's amazing because sometimes I can be writing and I'm like, I don't really know. I start sometimes just writing my day, kind of what's going on. And then it's interesting how my hand will go a lot faster and just, because I can write. People know that I take notes and, if you know me, I can write pretty fast. I could write like almost, if I'm at a presentation, I can almost write what they say word for word. I can write that fast. But anyways, my hand just starts writing faster and I'm almost like, I can't even, it's the weirdest thing really to experience.
It really is.
So I know sometimes like, this is not me. I mean, it's me, but it's
a deeper inner spiritual part of you.
Right.
That doesn't live on the surface.
Right. And I don't really know how to explain this. I mean, you just have to experience this. but it's changing my life. I know that I'm headed in the right direction. I know that God's with me. I know that I go to God for, guidance, navigation, and some things, definitely my problems, some things that I may not even share with you because I feel like I may want to share it with you, but I got to go to him first because, like you said earlier, I got to check myself.
Exactly.
I got to make sure that this is truly, me, or I may be thinking it's you, but I need to make sure, I need to figure. It's always him. It's always him. No, but I got to check myself. I would never have done that before if I wouldn't have experienced, going through this process. So here's what I want to say about that. Thank you so much, like from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I know you're just the vehicle. You were the person he placed in front of me.
That's it.
But I'm so thankful, and I learned from you. I mean, I love the conversations that we have. Guys, we can sit in bed together and we just geek out on God. We have conversations about him. I may be asking questions, what do you think about this, that? I don't understand this. What's your thoughts about that? And we can go on and on and on. And honestly, those are probably my favorite conversations. That's probably my, funnest time with you really, is because I feel like it's all of us. And what I mean by that is God and us.
I figured the funnest times you had was biting me. And big old vampire teeth.
Timmy, no. Well, those are some fun times too.
I tell her stuff that she don't want to hear. I get bit.
And yes, because sometimes I'm like, Timmy, no.
But really, most of our conversations are like that. But
most of them are.
They really are, but they're about us. But God's always in them.
Yes.
And that's what happens when, I've had people. I call God dude.
Yes.
I mean, I go outside sometimes and I'm like, dude, when I'm frustrated.
Yeah, I know.
And people are like,
I do
dude,
too.
that is so irreverent. But, I learned early on in my recovery
It's my relationship.
It is. And this is what my sponsor taught me. He said, let me tell you what religion teaches you. That reverence is bended knee. Oh, my wonderful Heavenly Father.
Thou shalt not.
How great thou art.
Yes.
That's what we are told. My sponsor told me, and you gotta remember, this dude was a Baptist minister for 35 years, and one of his things that he was famous for saying was, I'm ashamed of some of the sermons that I gave.
Wow.
Because they weren't based in spirituality, they were based in religion, and they're not the same. And dang, I lost my train of thought. So
wow.
But the Bible, God says, lean not to your own understanding, but acknowledge me in all your ways. Well, guess what? All my ways are not, my wonderful Heavenly Father. They're just not. Some of them are, dude, seriously?
Are you kidding me? I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
Yes. And people are like, oh, that's heretic. But like my sponsor said, the most reverent thing you can do for God or any other human being is tell the truth about where you are, about what's going on. That's reverence. If you want to be respectful to God, don't go to God with some BS.
He knows your heart.
He knows your heart. And you're going,
Yeah,
but you're angry and excited or disappointed or scared or whatever it is, then you go that way. And whatever comes out, comes out. God has got great big shoulders. I've learned that too. He's not up there to strike me down. He's up there to help me. And when I cry out in distress, he don't really care what the words come out of my mouth are. He cares that I'm crying out in distress, which is an acknowledgement that he's in charge.
Yeah, that I even go to him and want to have a conversation with him. So I agree with you 100%.
And that's the difference in a spiritual journey and a religious walk. And church is great for some people.
Yes.
But not for me. And you talking about you don't go to church. Yeah, the truth is you do. We had Jay's dad came and he says this is more like church than any church I've ever been in. So Recovery Road is like a church, but what it is it's a church that doesn't have bullet points. See, we don't like to do numbers, but if my way's the only way, 6.5 billion people are going to hell. And that's not a God I serve. And since I don't think like him and I don't know what he's doing, then the only conclusion I can come to is I absolutely don't know. And I'm going to go with what they told me, and I'm banking on grace and mercy, and I'm going to do what Jesus said, which is love God and love each other, and I'm going to let the rest of it lie still. I'm not going to tie myself up with the rituals of men.
Right.
And because what has happened is
I don't have time.
the sacrifice God made by sending his son here is now divided.
Yes.
Extremely divided. And you have lots, not just a few, you have lots of preachers making phenomenal amounts of money to spread the word of God while we have people starving right here in our country.
Right.
And that is not being a servant. A workman is worthy of his hire. He's not worthy of exorbitant crap. It's just ridiculous. And so it's back to that. That's where me and religion struggle. Recovery Road's not even a 501c3. We fund by people who love us and want to help, and by my family. And my whole family sold out to this.
They are.
And the reason they sold out to this
is they see.
Yep. You can't tell them nothing.
The difference.
They
the
know.
Healing.
My parents were Church of Christ my whole life. When they get out,
you were born and raised Church of Christ
my whole life. My daddy was a deacon pretty much my whole life in the Church of Christ. They now go to Cowboy Church. And they've been going down to the Presbyterian Church because they have some friends that go there.
Okay.
These are people who you would have never thought that. But I said that to say this. My recovery and my journey and these meetings that we do have changed my family too.
Wow. Because
God showed up and did his own convicting in their lives. I didn't. I no longer listened in the first years of my journey to what they had to say or what I was doing. I didn't listen to that. Not that they were condemning me, but, their religious conditioning had them fearful that I wasn't going to do the right thing. So I went into churches with my recovery for the first 6 years, and it wound up being a catastrophe at every single church. And the second to last one, I got trespassed from that church because I wouldn't be told what to do by anybody but God. And what God was telling me to do wasn't what they were wanting me to do. And so it took me out of religion, and my family decided we're going to put a room together that will accept everybody, and we don't need bullet points.
Or rules.
Or rules.
It was the rules.
That's the beautiful. We don't have rules. Yeah, you can't have people come as you are, except don't do this. You can't have on a piece of paper and go, don't cuss or don't do this. People are where they are.
Exactly.
And, I used to cuss like a sailor. My cussing has gotten better, not even because I think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, it really does. Shit sounds so much worse than caca or doo-doo. Men decided what words sound bad.
Right.
That's just, let's keep it real about that. And so if people come in and that's where they are, that's where we allow them to be, because I only know that worked for me. That's all I know. And so I was trained in the way I should go.
That's what worked for me.
And that's what worked for you. And that's what I was saying earlier. We're not for everybody. If you're offended, that's fine. But I quit doing God's job, and I open a door and let God do God's job. And I let my life be my testimony. I'm there every week. You pick up the phone, you call me, I'm going to help you. Yeah, I let my life be my light. And if you want to know what I believe and why I am the way I am, I will absolutely tell you. Until then, I'm not going to beat you with anything. I think this is my personal opinion for most people that walk into recovery. A lot of your hurts and hang-ups that have caused your habits came from your conditioned belief system. None of us ever checked for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And my sponsor told me this a long time ago when I first got in recovery, and it has turned out to be true. If we're not careful, we will spend our entire life defending the three things we were given: your name, your political affiliation, and your religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. And you will spend the rest of your life defending those if you're not. I've become what is called open-minded. It's one of the requirements. People ask, how did you get here? Honesty, open-minded, and willingness. And that's why I had to be honest in the beginning about me and you, is that honesty is now a part of my life. First, I'm honest about me. Then I can be honest with you about you, and the rest of the world about the rest of the world. Open-minded means that I'm not fixing to sit still and call everything, because the more I learn, the less I know, and the less I know, the more I want to learn. And so if you read, and I did over 4 years of studying all of it, all of your major religions. I've read the Quran, I've read the Mahabharata, I've read the Buddhist teachings. I've read all of the old proverbs from about 13 different countries, and they all are about the same thing. And it's a divine relationship. That's what it's about. And as much as we let the world shut us up, there's still a piece of you that's spiritual. Your skin's like a tree. We forget that. We need the exact same things a tree needs.
Right.
Water, food, oxygen, all that. So your body, that's all it is. But there is a piece of you that will not die.
That's right.
And what happens here, what we do here, in my personal belief, is going to determine what happens over there.
I agree.
And I have no clue what that's going to look like.
Well, and what's interesting is I was on Paul Fritz's podcast on Friday, and you know this, but, he asked me, he said, I'm going to end with a unique question, and I can't remember what the question was, but I remember that my answer was, it was something along the line, I can't remember what his question was. Can't remember yesterday, so how am I going to remember that? But anyways, but my answer, I remember telling him this was, and it's because of where I'm walking personally, that was to think for yourself, to ask questions, that we are so conditioned in our belief systems and what we believe. I challenge you to actually go back and think about some of those things yourself and go, wait a minute, is this truly what I believe, or was I conditioned? Is this generationally what my family has thought? And I've never put a thought to that before. I just know this is how I need to act or think about this subject, when in fact, we need to really be thinking about everything. God gave us a mind to think, and so use it.
Exactly.
But that's what I'm learning right now, because so many things get in God's word when I'm journaling and whatnot, praying, meditating and whatnot. I have a million questions now. And it's exactly what you say. I know now that I know nothing, absolutely nothing. And that I'm like, okay, God, it's you and me, and I need answers. And so I feel like right this second that it's me asking him, and I've been asking for the right answers. But what's funny is even like this weekend, we're in bed, we're watching TV, and we see some things
that we were talking
that we clicked on, that we talked about the night before, where we're like blown away going, this is confirmation. Mm-hmm. Because if you wouldn't happen to click on that, and I don't know what made us do, and then the next thing that came on, I was like,
yeah, it was
oh my God, I
those.
felt like God was giving me even more confirmation. Timmy fell asleep, but I'm like, Timmy, you got to watch this, blah, blah, blah. I don't think we watched it, but we pieces of it. But it just shows me that God's got me aligned, and I'm on the right track. I'm at the right place, right time, his timing, his perfect timing for everything that I'm walking through. You know that I sit here and chat with you about all these things. God brought me this person today. This happened today. All the encounters that I have now, I'm realizing it's taken me about a week and a half ago to realize, holy crap, everything really is spiritual. Like, I know this, but now I'm actually recognizing it, and he's showing me.
The more you pay attention, the more you realize it is a real thing. I wanted to touch on what you said about the conditioning, and that's that people forget and don't know, because it started when we were so young, that our parents the first words a child understands is no, stop.
Don't do that.
Yes, don't do that.
Right.
Well, Mommy, why?
Right.
What's your answer?
Because I told you so.
Because I said so.
Yeah.
And so we don't really get any explanations. Then if you get older and you do get in a place and you ask this question, like, okay, you go to Sunday school, you learn about Cain and Abel, and Cain killed Abel, and he was banished from the garden, and he went and married a woman in the land of Nod. Okay, I've never been an idiot. I wanted to know what that meant. I thought they were the first people. Who's the lady in Nod, and
where did they come from?
Where'd they come from? And then all of a sudden might be possessed or something, because I'm asking this question, and that it's my lack of faith, and that I don't need to ask those questions. And so we got to realize that when we first start on our spiritual journey, your conditioning is going to try to control you.
Right.
And you're going to feel guilty and afraid that these things you're thinking and feeling are going to put you in hell, or going to condemn you. Everybody has those feelings, but as you go through the journey and you do ask the questions, and something bigger and badder than you starts revealing the answers, and sometimes the answers you don't need to know. But thanks for asking the question, because you're paying attention. this all starts, our conditioning, our hurts, hang-ups, and habits started when we're very young, and they follow us through our life, and they dictate how we deal with certain situations and certain people and things that come up.
Respond.
And so what a spiritual journey does is it changes that view, and you lose that guilt. Matter of fact, you lose all your guilt. You lose all your guilt, all your shame, and all your remorse goes away. And if you walk through a spiritual journey, you can look any man in the eye, and his opinion of you won't matter.
That's right.
And recovery is based on attraction rather than promotion. And so you need to want what I have. And the only way you're going to see that is by me living through this journey.
For example.
And you're all about living your best life.
Yes.
That's your motto.
That is my motto.
The absolute, I am too. And I think everybody wants to, but most people believe that means I've got millions, I've got this, I can go do that, I can do that.
You're
and
right.
It really has nothing to do with that, because they still have no peace.
Right.
And today I have peace. I don't know what the afterlife looks like. What I know is that I absolutely deserve the worst of it. And I'm absolutely going to inherit the kingdom. Not by my so doings, but by God's grace and mercy. And if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm doing my best.
Right.
To serve somebody who don't think like me and whose ways are not my ways.
Right.
And is not restricted by time. So I'm just doing the best I can to navigate. So I just want to encourage people that if you decide to take a spiritual journey, to try to start meditating and journaling, don't feel guilty. You will. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but just walk through that guilt and be okay with asking the questions.
Well, and this is going to prompt this. I mean, there in my walk right this second, there is, and I think you know this, there's a little part where I am extremely questioning, and it's because I've been so ingrained in even the conversations that I have with people today from a religious standpoint, tell me, no, you're not to think that way. You're not to do that. You're not to. I feel that I'm extremely open-minded. I've always been open-minded. I have always asked questions since I was a little girl, to the point, and I've been very boisterous to the point where my parents were like, I remember being in situations and they're like, shut that kid up, shut that kid up. And it's just who God made me. So there's some things that I'm questioning. And so what you're saying, I have kind of a little bit the guilt and the shame of like, why am I thinking this? But I know everything in my being right now is I'm supposed to be questioning.
You are.
And so he will give me the answers. And I think this is going to be very interesting. And I think I'm going to fucking rock some people's worlds when I finally get what I believe he's going to give me. I mean, I don't know. I feel it. I'm not real sure, but I want to make sure that this is not my, me, that I get it from him to go, okay, I really believe that 2023 is some type of spiritual awakening or something in our whole world.
We're back to the numbers.
Okay.
Because 20, 23.
All right.
What does that equal?
3, 4, 5, 7.
7. And 7 is a divine number. God created the earth on the seventh day. He rested. I can just go on, but there's tons of 7. 7 is absolutely a divine number. And like you, I know I'm sitting in a place because I pray, meditate, and I do this too on the daily. I pray and meditate every day. I journal about every other day. Sometimes I'll journal every day. Just depends on where I am. But I absolutely know, because of you, thank you, that I have some things that I'm going to have to talk about this year that are going to completely go against the grain of a lot of people. And I may lose people, and they may fall off, and I'm okay with that because it's something that needs to be told. And it goes back to part of it is a conditioned belief system that we were all given about some things that have absolutely been proven not to be true. Yes. And so that'll come, and you know that. You know what it is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I'll give you a hint.
No hints.
Just a small one.
No
I've
I don't know if I'm ready for this yet.
Oh, this is easy. I've had 16 surgeries in my lifetime. 7 back surgeries. I got 2 pounds of metal in me. I struggle to get up every morning because I lost the privilege of taking medications for that. So, I manage my pain with Heat and ice, massage,
Yes.
ointments.
Yes.
And
Massage.
I said massage. Yeah, and I don't get that. Yeah, no. We had a deal where I cooked, she rubbed. I've been cooking, she ain't been rubbing.
That's some damn good food, guys.
Not good enough for a rub, but I get her fat and happy and she falls asleep full. So I'm going to start getting my rubbing in advance.
Aw, baby.
But, I deal with some real life stuff.
Yes.
Chronic pain is something that is in my life that I have to deal with. And people look at me and they don't know I have it. And I take no medications.
And looking at you, you wouldn't think that you're in pain. Right.
But I am all the time.
I know you are.
And, some days are really bad. When the weather's weird, that's really what determines it for me. But it's a real issue. And so there's a lot of issues that people have that don't go away just because you quit getting high, or you quit lying, or you quit stealing, or you quit having an affair, or you quit doing whatever it is you're doing. There's still after effects that still go on with that. And there's a lot of situations that don't just resolve themselves. And so people get stuck in that and think that there is no resolution, but there is. And the deal is this, it's back to the same thing. Pray, meditate, and journal about those situations you're in and that you're dealing with, and watch God reveal to you the answers.
Right.
But the key is to pay attention. You know this, and you learn this. And you and I, when we first, I used to tell you, pay attention to numbers. Pay attention to numbers. You wound up buying a property because of the address, and it's turned out to be what? An extremely great blessing for you and them. Correct?
Correct. And
based on a number, and people think that's weird. Who the hell would go spend money on buy a property because the
property
address
that's
was
not even should be in my investment portfolio, honestly.
But its address was what?
410.
410, and the way it came about could not be any other thing but God.
Yeah, that story is very, very interesting.
But that's a whole nother day too. But that's just another example that when
paying attention.
But what you did was you took suggestions from some other people. And that's the key to recovery. Take some suggestions, do some things, and see if your life doesn't change. Grief, I want to touch on this, and I want to make sure this is in there. Tim don't run a grief group. We have people at Recovery Road who have passions for different things. And my brother Gary does our grief group because he has a real passion for it. And all I do is just have
open
the facilities, and Gary does that, and I'm grateful to him for that, because without him, there wouldn't have been a grief group, and I wouldn't have met you.
That's right.
And so God does amazing things through people.
Yes,
He really does, and people who are lined up and trying. Ain't none of us doers. We're all triers, and I believe that's the only difference. We try, we fail, we keep trying. But what we don't do is we don't try, fail, and then blame someone else because we failed. Right. We call it what it is. We put it on our own shoulders. We go to God. We correct it. We move forward. We do better.
So I'm going to do a shout out very quickly about that. So Gary did start a new grief group, and I think it's a 7-week series. Week 1 we've already gone to, but it's every Thursday night at 6:30 at Recovery Road. Once again, I'm going to give the address 410 South IH 35. And Red Oak. So here's what I'll say. If you're cruising down the feeder road, here's the Oaks Church on the left-hand side. You're at the stop sign on the feeder road. Keep on going down. I'm a real estate girl, so I noticed. So there will be John and Leslie Majors billboard. Look for that. After that, Martin Roofing. The next building is Recovery Road. Just know, because if you GPS it, I think it takes you to Pizza Hut. Taco Bell. So make sure that you hit the right spot. This is a house. Now, one other thing, we're going to back up because Caleb just said, hey, talk about your story about 410. So we're going to do that very quickly. Okay. And, you're such a part of this too. And throughout my walk. So let me tell you, this 410 property comes up on my desk, the MLS printout, and I see it. And here's what I felt. 410, and I looked at it, and it just felt like, and I don't know where that was coming from. This is very early on. I think I bought this last year or the year before, maybe in 2021.
It was your first spiritual transaction.
It's this first spirit. So it must have been in 2021. So I don't know what I know today, but it came and I just felt profoundly like I'm going to buy that house. I'm supposed to buy that house. And I don't know what that was about. It was about God. So in the end, this was a wholesaler that was offering it. And so I go to the appointment. He said, everybody meet at the property, I don't know, Thursday at 2:00. So and all these people show up. Just think, this is the midst of major multiple offers, people paying exorbitantly for property. And I see all these people and I'm like, this is not going to happen. Why would I have felt that way? Oh my God. So lo and behold, all these people were there. The person in the house wouldn't let the people walk through the property. Well, I find out now, in retrospect, I found out that it was because that owner had never told the tenant that they were selling the property. And so once the owner or the tenant found out, they were inside the house with the owner going like, wait, what is going on? So anyways, that house got snatched up. Somebody, of course, that day, I wanted to put an offer in. There was miscommunication somehow with my wholesaler because I told him I wanted to write an offer and he contacted me back, but I thought I needed to write the offer. And so when I called him back and said, yeah, I'm going to write you the offer, blah, blah. And he said, whoa, what? That's not how we work. You just tell me you want it. We write the offer. And I'm like, okay, we'll write it. And he goes, well, it's already sold. And I'm like, darn it. And I was like, well, what was this about? Oh, well, and left it at that. And probably told you about it. We communicated about this property a lot. That night, that's right, I didn't go to Recovery Road. I was at dinner with somebody. And whoever I went to dinner with, I remember this person just started texting me out of the blue saying like, hey, I know you're interested in 410. Are you interested enough into it to write an offer? Where I had to excuse myself from the dinner to go like, who are you? And from what I understand, this property's already sold. Well, my wholesaler that I was working through to get this property, this was the true wholesaler that actually acquired the property. And he said, hey, the deal busted. I happened to overhear you and I saw you. And I said, how did you get my name and my number? How did you even contact me? He goes, well, you're Kirstie Morales. I see you everywhere. And I'm like, oh, thank God for that, So he was able to get my number and text me. So anyways, I ended up going through him and say, all right, let's do this. But you remember how many hurdles and stumbles there were to get to the finish line? Something happened with the owner. The owner didn't want to sell the property. The wholesaler's like, you got to talk to the owner. You got to make this happen. Then I actually go and speak with the tenant.
That was what I was fixing to say. That's what changed it.
So in speaking with the tenant, I didn't understand. And when I sat in that house with the tenant for hours at her kitchen table, and my mouth was just like, and I literally was like, Cindy, I don't know why I'm rambling to you. I'm going on and on and on. I want to ask you, why am I here? What is going on in your life right this second? Why am I here? I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm rambling to you about all my God stories too. And she told me something that basically
profound,
shattered me. And I knew right then and there, like, all right, girl, she started crying. I remember grabbing her arm and going, all right, girl, I don't know how this is working. Let me just see what I can do. Just hang on there, hang on, because I didn't know if I was going to actually be able to buy the property based on what was going on with the owner. So I said, just hold tight. And so many things happened throughout that transaction, meaning that I was at their house one day and the owner came by because she was paying rent. And just these things, I'm like, why am I here when the owner's here? Should I go out and talk to her? We made a decision, no, be based on what the tenants told me. But all in all, here, the end of the story was I bought the property. It was a God thing. It was not a property that I would normally invest in. Like I said, it was not a part of my investment portfolio. It's like they market it as a 3-1. No, it's truly a 2-1, things that I just would not have invested in. But you know what? That day when I did purchase that property, it was all about investing in souls. It was about investing in people. And I felt so right about it. Now, I am going to put this on video, Caleb, because I have not modified my will. I don't know if I want them to see this. Never mind. So,
no.
Okay, because I'm like, no, and
If
then
you're questioning it, don't.
and that no, it's something that I'm going to do, but I
You'll know
don't.
when.
I want the glory goes to God,
You'll know when.
not to me. The glory goes to God, so I need to make sure
I
that
know what you're talking
maybe I
about.
don't disclose this because that's between me and God. So I'm gonna leave that at that.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. So, but just if I wouldn't have, and I remember you coming over one night throughout this experience, and I was bawling. You were making dinner, and I'm like, I'm going to go into my closet. Like literally, I went into my dark closet and was bawling and praying because I didn't understand. Why did you take me? Because at one point when all that started happening, the owner, I was like, God, why did you bring me this far to have this? And why is this going to be taken away? Because I thought it was going to be possibly taken away and I didn't understand all this, but he's all about later. And what I didn't realize in that whole story is that it was a God transaction for everybody. For me, for the tenant, for the owner, for the wholesaler, for the other wholesaler. I don't know for you, maybe for you too, but all of it, all those people knew that God was involved.
Actually, I got to sit on the back end and watch. And not that I'm somewhere way better, farther than everybody else, but I have learned one thing, and I watched all that unfold. And I felt you were obedient because of the number, which was something new to you, but it was enough. And God has one question, and that's, I think, why you bought me this cup. It's never, ever any other question. This dude is a broken record.
He is.
He don't say, get me, understand me, figure it out. He says, trust me.
Yes.
And so he's okay when you go, what the hell, dude? Because his answer's the same. Pitch you on your little peaked head and go, just trust me, Chrissy.
Right.
And you did that. And when you did that, he proved to you that he's trustworthy. He proved to the tenants he's trustworthy. Don't know what the other people learned, if anything. They may learn later.
Right.
But what I do know is that the people who needed it, the lessons, and the people who needed to know God was trustworthy, got to find that out, you and the tenants, which was the only ones it was really about. It was about you being a vehicle to, I won't say save these people, but kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah, to kind of save these people. Because they're good people whose story was an important part of the transaction. Matter of fact, it backed up the 410 number.
Yes, it backed up why I was there.
Exactly.
And I knew when she said that, I was like, that's why I'm here.
And so you vibe real high, and you run your mouth a lot, way faster and more. And you know me, I love you, and I tell you, just shut up for a minute. But you are high energy, but you're high energy because you're high vibration. And now you're into something new that's exciting. And the deal is this: you are being with the Divine Design Podcast and doing what you're doing. You're showing people that there's another way to live, and that it is about more than just what you accomplish in your professional life, what you do. See, my professional life was stealing cars and smoking crack. That's what I have to look at for a profession. And I'm not going to be measured by that.
Right.
I'm going to be measured by what I did with that. And so I made those choices, and I wound up where I wound up, but I also made these choices, and I wound up where I wound up. So I chose to do it my own way, and then I chose to do it God's way. And now that you've chose to do it God's way, and you do little things like pay, people are like, numbers, that's just da-da-da-da-da-da. Really, there's a book in the Bible called Numbers, so shut up.
Right.
It's mentioned like 10,000 times in the Bible. There's so many numbers that matter. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples, 7 days, 3 days. There's a lot of numbers that matter whether you like it or whether you don't.
Right.
So shut up with that. It's not a coincidence. Absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. So you woke up on your journey. During this journey, you've woke up and you're seeing and looking and doing things different. And now you're putting it out there because God called you to.
Right.
And you told me, I don't even know what I'm doing.
And I don't.
And you don't have to. And you know why? Because of the name says it all. It's by divine design. And so he'll do what he's going to do.
Yes.
And, Recovery Road, we're on Facebook. We get 300, 400 views, through our Facebook lives. It's not a lot of people. I'm not in the results business. I'm in the delivery business. Right. I deliver the message, and my message is very simple. God is real. If you want to know him, I can show you how. What I can't do is tell you what to believe. Right. What I can do is show you how to unbelieve everything you believe and come up with your own beliefs. Right. Because the key to recovery is first unlearning. And so that's what we do. And you, for me, even though I love you, you're also, and there's a lot of other, I've got a lot, you've been to Recovery Road. I have some successes that I get to look at. God has successes that I got to be a part of that I get to look at. Sure. But it's fun to watch people go, what the hell was that? What is that? Because they've never asked those questions before. They never paid attention to the things that are really going on. And so I guess I want to end with telling you, thank you for carrying this message forward. Thank you for putting your spin on it, because the truth is you're not an addict. Right. But you still have hurts and hang-ups. Absolutely. That have caused bad habits. That's why I believe. And people get twisted, don't they? They think habits mean, oh, well, I didn't do heroin or crack or meth. I didn't have that kind of habit. Trust me, you have habits. Everyone does. I'm a workaholic. Sex, pornography, overeating. There's so many being things. In debt. Under-eating. There's so many everything. Things. Yes. Everybody has issues. Yes. And the deal is this, our issues control us if we don't control them. That's right. And recovery and the 12 steps and divine design tool. It's a powerful tool. And I really believe that's part of his mission for me is to bring this out to mainstream. This is not this is for everyone. It is. And what I've heard you do, and when I've watched all your podcasts, and what I see happening is that you're talking about subjects that are hard to talk about. And you have a lot of people who want to talk about them, even though they're hard to talk about. And what has happened so far that I know, and I'm not going into detail, but you're stepping out in faith, not knowing what you're doing. And your divine design, allowing God to be in charge, has already influenced others to do their own stuff. Yes. And so, praise God. You can drop dead today and be okay. You did what God said. And I'm telling you, for me, that's important. And I know you and I kind of butt heads on this, but I'm going to touch on it. And you're getting there, and you're getting further along, and it's starting to make more sense to you, and that's living in the day. Oh, living in the moment, living in the present day. And living in the moment. And I'm realizing it is so important. And I'm such a big picture girl, future. I'm not a past girl. I'm a future girl. That it's hard for me to break. It's been pretty hard, but with him, he's helping me, and I really am starting to see the light on this, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's truly important. It is. And Jeremy Camp has got this song, and it's called Keep Me in the Moment. Because I don't want to miss what you have for me. And so God only gives me stuff today. Right. Granted, everything he gives me today, he ain't going to use that shit till later. Right. But he's still giving it to me today, and I have to pay attention to it today, so when it happens later, I can pay attention to see that. And so, but if I'm thinking about what I'm going to do in March, and that's where my focus is, or what's going to go on Friday or Thursday, if that's where my focus is, I'll miss these subtle things like the football thing. Right. I'll miss the things that God's trying to show me, because the world will keep screaming at me. And so taking time with God, prayer, meditation, journaling, keeps us more awake on a daily basis. Starting our day off, third step prayer. Third step says we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God as we understand him. And the reason that says that is because I understand God more today than I did almost 18 years ago. And I still don't understand him pretty much at all. Yeah. Only that he's active in my life. And that when I ask for things, he doesn't give them to me. He gives me evidence of the answer. And so my questions get answered with evidence, spiritual evidence. Sometimes it's a number. Sometimes it's something else. Sometimes it's a word somebody says. Sometimes it's a text message. Sometimes it's a random call out of nowhere. But the answers are in there because he never leaves me hanging. And so what you're doing is being obedient. Yes. And I just want to encourage you to know that it doesn't matter if you know what you're doing or not. I've watched your podcasts, and they're great. And the whole key is that it does not matter what the results are, because there are some results. And that's not my job. My job is not the results business. And that's where spirituality separates from recovery. I mean, from religion. Recovery and spirituality do one thing. We deliver the message and let God do his job. And if one soul gets touched, hell, we're good. We're good. That's enough, because that's all he wanted to get touched.
That's right.
I know from my own journey, the more I put into it, the more people get touched. The more people buy into this when they have the courage to walk into a room and go, I don't know what I'm doing either.
Right.
I just want to live different.
And it does take courage to step into that room, but I encourage you to definitely step into the room. It doesn't matter. We all have hurts, hang-ups, and habits. I mean, we do, so it doesn't matter. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on board today. Thank you for sharing our story. And I know that sometimes we might not want to put our private life, out in the public, but I think it's important that we do this. I'd love to have you back on another time.
Anytime.
Talking about whatever we need to talk about, but I think you are going to come back on after we kind of do this reveal.
Yeah, you know what's going on. Yeah, and I'm really actually I got some more of it this morning. It's I got the same vision.
Okay.
In my meditation this morning, because I was actually praying and meditating about this, and I didn't really get that. I got something else.
Okay.
And so I know that, and I'm still in my research and in my own part of this. There's a couple of legs left on this journey before I'm able to bring this out into the open, and it will be a shocker. Yeah. It absolutely, you know what it is. It'll be a shocker to people. They're like, damn, this dude's taking this stand. You damn straight I am, because it's not me taking this stand.
But it's also, I just think where you need, your story, just where people have been and where the Lord takes them. Now, another thing too is, I think there's other things. Stay tuned, guys, because there's other things that are going to get revealed in this podcast too, that I think people are going to, like I said last time, this may be a controversial podcast, but in the end, I feel God is revealing these things to me, to you, and it is time for people to truly think for themselves. You know what? Take a topic, research it, and come up with your own opinion on that. And that even means God. Religion,
especially God,
whatnot, because that's what I'm seeing.
Unwrap that box, take God out of his box, let him manifest to you. That's my encouragement. Get him out of the box you put him in.
Because he's not to be in a box.
No, he's not.
Not at all.
Our little finite minds can't imagine.
Can't even grasp what this is and what this is about.
God's infinite wisdom.
Yes.
I have a finite mind.
Right.
He has an infinite mind.
Right.
I mean, I can't mess with that.
Right.
But I can pay attention. I absolutely can pay attention and feel. And you were talking about, and then I'll be done. You were talking about Recovery Road being huggers.
Yes.
People in the world think that is a greeting, but that's really not what that is. And the reason we hug at Recovery Road is because we're true believers in energy transfer.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely. If I'm in a good place and you're in a bad place, my hug just puts you in a better place. My energy, my positive emotion put yours in a better place. It ain't going to fix you, but get you about 5 or 6 of them bitches and then go into your small group and come out and see if you don't feel different.
Well, you're right about that. And what I love about Recovery Road too is there is transparency, honesty, and whatnot. I mean, if you come in and you're like, hey, how are you? And I'm okay. And you say it kind of like that. Like, these people truly say, like, man, I had a shit ass day. I'm hurting because of this, or this happened to me, or whatnot. But it truly is just a free space to truly let all of your stuff out. I got to have you on again, because we got to talk about so much more. I mean, Tim, you and I could go on forever and ever and ever. All of this spurs conversation to me, but we have to wrap it up. Just thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and I mean, I would love to share more about our relationship and what we're traveling through, because I think it's important. And for somebody to see, a relationship that truly where God comes first, and what that kind of looks like, and kind of what do we struggle with and whatnot. So if we can help anybody in that respect, or if you want what we got, which I'm hoping you do, because look, there's no other way to live. That is what I'm learning throughout all of this. Like, I only want him in my life. I don't want to do this. And you got to bring me somebody who is like-minded, and we got to trust. You're right.
And the deal's this. about relationships, and it's something God put us on and taught us this early.
Yes.
How important this is.
Yes.
Not just between him, but between us.
Right.
And so trust has built more powerful worldly empires, more powerful spiritual empires than anything else can, including love. Love don't always trust.
You're right.
It's not in there. If you read the definition, trust part is not in there. But if love is done correctly, trust cannot be a part of it.
And so I am going to say this real quick. So throughout this process, though, I'm going to tell you that I truly, with God, love myself, that I can love other people. And I've noticed throughout traveling, going to meetings and whatnot, Recovery Road, that this is just starting to flourish. But not only it started in Recovery Road, but what's happening is it's now, like I'll say, bleeding over into my team and everything and everyone
Everywhere
that I encounter.
Yes. And that's all
this
recovery
is what
does.
God wants me to do.
Yes, and that's what a place like Recovery Road is. It's what you said. It's a safe harbor to know yourself,
Right.
and change the way you deal with yourself, which automatically changes the way you deal with the world, which automatically bleeds on it.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're changing your energy. You're changing your energy from a worldly energy to a spiritual energy. And you think you got, like, I know I got a fly mouth and I can pretty much talk about anything. And I thought that was a character defect. Turns out that is an absolute blessing God gave me. I just changed my mouth.
And the fact that we're willing to speak up.
Speak up. And why?
Because we don't care.
We don't care.
People
and
think
why?
of us.
Because once you experience some freedom and some peace, the first thing you want is other people to have that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And so if you go to recovery and it isn't bleeding out into your work world, your private world, you ain't doing it right.
I would agree with that.
It
This
should
will be another
absolutely.
podcast because
It
we
will.
can go on
It
and
will.
on. I love you.
I love you
You're
too.
Sweet babe.
Let's pray out. Can we?
Okay. Yes. Please.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the things that you're doing in our lives. We know you're real. We know you don't look like the world thinks you look. We know that you are participating in every aspect of our life, and we are grateful for that. Lord, we pray that you'll continue to bless this relationship, that you'll bless Divine Design, that you'll bless Recovery Road, that you'll continue to keep us healthy and safe so that we can keep marching down the road and doing what you would have us do next. Lord, keep us doing the next right thing and not the easy thing. Pray, Lord, that you'll continue to guide us, guard us, and direct us. And in the end, your mercy takes us home. It's these things we ask in the Son of God. Amen.
In Jesus' name, amen. Love you.
Love you. Cut.
Wow.